All right, let's dive into some really cool stuff today. We've got a whole bunch of research articles and travel blogs, even some park guidelines, it looks like, all about citizen science and sustainable ways to enjoy nature.
Sounds like quite the mix.
It is. And to help us unpack it all, we're going to follow the work of Kesser and Steen.
Ah, yes, their latest research.
Exactly. They're exploring California's Point Reyes National Seashore and trying out all sorts of new ideas for encouraging, well, responsible outdoor fun, I guess you could say.
What's interesting is they're really hands-on. Like, they're not just studying it, they're looking for ways to make things better. Everything from simple apps that share park rules to using citizen science to get a better understanding of the environment.
Oh yeah, speaking of apps, they found out that Point Reyes Station uses a dedicated phone number and an app for visitor info.
Oh, cool.
It's got alerts, real-time updates, even things like if a beach is closed to protect wildlife.
Smart. That's a really easy way to give people the information they need to, be responsible from the moment they arrive.
Right. And it's not just about rules. They also found this treasure hunt activity where you use an app to take pictures of plants and animals.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. And all those pictures go into a big archive that helps researchers keep an eye on how healthy the park's ecosystem is.
So it's like turning a fun day out into useful data collection.
Exactly. And Kesser even suggested something similar could be done in new forests, like having a photo poll to track the growth and changes over time.
Simple but effective.
Definitely. And that idea of citizen science, well, that ties in perfectly with Leave No Trace, which came up a lot in the stuff you sent.
Ah, yes. Leave no trace.
Don't take anything but photos and don't leave anything but your shadow. Love that.
Bitchy, right. But leave no trace is more than a motto. It's a whole set of 7 principles for minimizing our impact when we're out in nature.
7. What are they?
Let's see. Plan ahead and prepare. Travel and camp on durable surfaces. Dispose of waste properly. Leave what you find. Minimize campfire impact. Respect wildlife and be considerate of others.
Okay, that makes sense.
And the cool thing is they're not set in stone. They're constantly evolving based on, new research and the changing needs of different environments.
So it's not just about memorizing rules. It's more like understanding the ideas and adapting them to different situations.
Exactly. Leave No Trace is all about using the best available information. In fact, they have a big project planned for 2025, focusing on how people deal with waste and recycling in national parks.
Wow.
They want to understand how people behave and then come up with ways to encourage more sustainable practices.
It's really great that they're so committed to protecting nature for, everyone to enjoy in the future. But protecting these places takes money, right? Kesser and Steen brought up an interesting point about how paid parking at parks in the U.S. could be used to help with maintenance and, educating visitors.
Yeah, that's interesting. It really makes you think about how we balance making sure everyone can enjoy nature while also having the resources to protect it.
Right. Because some would say charging fees might discourage people from visiting, especially those who don't have a lot of extra money. But then others might say it's the only way to make sure these places can survive in the long run. Tricky.
It's definitely complicated. There's no easy answer.
It makes you wonder if there are other ways to fund these efforts. Maybe a mix of public and private partnerships. Or even something like crowdfunding for specific projects.
It's great that Kesser and Steen are already thinking about these issues, trying to come up with new solutions.
It's what makes their research so fascinating. They're not just studying the problem, they're looking for ways to get people involved in actually making a difference.
It's not just about the money, though, right? It's also about figuring out how to deal with the specific challenges that come with different types of recreation. Like you said, some guidelines about bringing dogs into nature.
Oh, yeah. Those guidelines were pretty interesting. It's easy to forget how, even if you're trying to be careful, bringing your dog out into nature can still have an impact. It's more than just keeping them on a leash.
Right. Leashes are definitely important, to protect wildlife in those more delicate areas, but there's more to think about than just that.
Like what about their, waste?
Exactly. Dog waste, it doesn't really belong in most ecosystems.
Right.
It can introduce bacteria and even too many nutrients, which can throw things off balance. So the guidelines are pretty clear. Pick it up and take it with you.
No, leaving it to get later. But what if you're somewhere really remote, where carrying it out isn't really practical?
Well, in those cases, the guidelines say to bury it at least 15 or 20 centimeters deep, kind of like we do with human waste. And definitely away from any water sources, just minimizing the impact as much as possible.
I was surprised that the guidelines even mentioned dog urine. as something to be mindful of. I hadn't really thought about that before.
Yeah, it's one of those things that people don't always consider, but dog urine can actually attract other animals to the area because of the salts and things like that, and that can cause problems for the soil and plants.
So what's the best way to handle that?
The guidelines suggest trying to direct dogs to pee on durable surfaces whenever you can, like rocks or gravel. Just a little thing, but it can make a difference.
It really shows how much thought goes into minimizing our impact, even when we've got our four-legged friends with us. But speaking of being thoughtful, I'm really intrigued by how Kesser and Steen are using their research to encourage citizen science. That treasure hunt activity in Point Reyes Station seems like such a fun way to get people involved.
It really is. It's a great example of how citizen science can actually contribute to conservation efforts. Those photos the visitors are taking, they can help researchers track changes in plant and animal populations over time, which is valuable for understanding how healthy the ecosystem is.
And Kesser's idea for the photo pole in newly planted forests, that's another great example of how citizen science could be a part of, just regular activities.
Imagine people taking pictures of the same trees year after year, watching them grow, seeing how the environment changes around them. It'd be like a visual record of the whole restoration process.
And it wouldn't just be about collecting data. It'd be about educating people.
Yeah.
Helping them feel more connected to the process. And that kind of brings us back to technology, right? Kesser and Steen were really impressed by how Point Reyes Station uses technology to keep visitors informed.
Yeah, they've got that dedicated phone number, the app, the website. It's all right there, easy to find.
And it's not just about giving people information. It's about encouraging them to, make good choices.
Like those real-time alerts about beach closures to protect the elephant seal pups.
Yeah, good example. Those restrictions are there for a reason, and technology helps get that message across in a clear, respectful way.
It's finding that balance, isn't it? Access and protection.
It really is. But it's not always about high-tech solutions, is it? Sometimes the simplest approaches are still the best.
Totally agree. Think about leave no trace. It's all about minimizing our impact, and you don't need any fancy gadgets for that.
Just a little common sense and, the willingness to do the right thing, like picking up after your dog.
It might seem like a small thing, but all those small things add up.
It all comes down to taking responsibility.
Yeah.
Whether we're using the latest tech or just relying on, a good judgment. And it's exciting to think about how Kesser and Steen's research might lead to even more creative approaches in the future.
It's really something how Kesser and Steen, even as visitors to Point Reyes, are picking up on all these little things about responsible recreation and how technology can help. It really shows how people are starting to think differently about their impact on nature.
It really does. And their perspective, as young researchers, is so valuable. They're not just watching from the sidelines. They're actively looking for ways to make things better and get other people involved.
That photo poll idea is a perfect example. It's just a simple concept, but think about the potential.
Yeah.
What if people all over the world started using photo polls to track the health of their local forests?
It'd be like a global network of citizen scientists.
Exactly. And it all ties back to using technology to make science more accessible and exciting for everyone.
Right. But even with all the cool new tech out there, we can't forget about those basic principles, like leave no trace.
Absolutely. Those principles are the foundation of responsible recreation. And what's great is they're always evolving. Leave No Trace is constantly doing research and updating their recommendations based on the latest science.
That's what makes them so effective. It's not just about following a set of rules. It's about understanding the ideas behind them and adapting to different situations.
Right. Like their project for 2025, the one focusing on waste and recycling in national parks, that'll probably lead to some new and improved advice on how we deal with our trash when we're out enjoying nature.
Good point. It's a reminder that we all have a responsibility to stay informed and keep learning about how to minimize our impact. And it sounds like Leave No Trace is doing a great job of leading the way.
Definitely. And as technology keeps advancing, I'm excited to see how it can be used to help us be even more sustainable and connect people with nature in new ways.
Can you imagine a future where apps not only tell us about trails and park rules, but also give us real-time feedback on our environmental footprint?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Maybe even suggest ways to make more eco-friendly choices.
Or what about like wearable devices that track our impact and, I don't know, maybe even reward us for making good decisions?
The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It's exciting to think about how technology can be a force for good in conservation.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something to think about. What if we approached all our interactions with nature, not just the fun stuff, with that same level of awareness and care?
That's a great thought. So it's like taking those leave no trace principles beyond the trails and making them part of our everyday lives.
Exactly. Whether it's trying to consume less, supporting businesses that are doing things the right way, or speaking up for policies that protect our environment, we all have a part to play in creating better relationship with nature.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this awesome journey into the world of citizen science, sustainable practices, and the incredible potential of technology to bring us closer to the natural world. Keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, even the smallest actions can make a big difference.